Hi, this is Mark Brown from Pocket Gamer with this, the MOGA Ace Power controller, the first game controller that's part of Apple's new plan to license joypads through its made for iPhone, made for iPod MFI scheme, where it's also sort of baking controller support directly into iOS 7, so developers use that to code their games, and all the manufacturers are sort of working on the same form factor, and then with everyone working in perfect harmony, all the games work on all the controllers and all the controllers work on the games. Very nice. So this is the MOGA one. MOGA normally makes pads for Android, but now under this scheme they're doing iOS as well. It's got lots and lots of buttons. You've got 2 analog sticks. They're actually a lot like the circle pad on the Nintendo 3DS. They're, completely flat, and you just sort of move it like this, and you've got the same one here for the circle, the second analog stick. You've got face buttons. They're actually pressure sensitive analog buttons, which seems a little bit overkill for iOS games, but that's something that developers can play, where you can sort of give it a bit of a light touch and sort of do a little jump, or a big touch and do a big jump maybe. We'll see what developers do. You've also got a D-pad that's kind of gross because no one except Nintendo can make a D-pad, apparently. Various other buttons. You've got shoulder buttons and shoulder triggers, and there's also a little micro USB port. And then you see here we've got the lightning connector, so it's totally official. So when you want to play, you just pull it apart like this. You take your device, let's try the iPhone, and snap it in like this, and you're good to go. So if we just load up a compatible game like Limbo, we're straight in there. Well, yes, okay, we're in there. And it's pretty much exactly like playing it on the Xbox 360 or whatever. You've got complete freedom of movement, and something like this section, which would be pretty tricky on the old touch controls of the iPhone, which are pretty good actually. I think in Limbo it's quite a good game, but it's just, you get so much more reliability in this. However, let me just kill myself. There is one problem I've noticed with the MOGA, which is something that is a little bit sort of concerning, which is that you can kind of press this button and the little guy won't jump every time. Because, and I think it must be down to the pressure sensitivity of these buttons, where you've got to give it a really hard touch to make him jump, whereas a sort of a light touch where you can really make it click and he won't jump. And to have it where you're playing with a physical hardware controller, and to have unreliable, unresponsive buttons that get you killed, which is what used to happen with touchscreen controls, is a little bit annoying. And I found this happens not too much, not enough to make me say that it's completely unusable, but it has been a little bit annoying. Speaking of which, I'll show you Dead Trigger 2, which is a first-person shooter. It's pretty fun, but the right analog stick, no matter what sensitivity I choose, it just seems to be a little bit hard to use. You have to really shove it a lot to move, and to have any kind of small nuanced movement of control just doesn't quite work. But like the buttons, it really could just be a case of the fact that Madfinger, who made the game, has not had a chance to test Dead Trigger 2 on one of these hardware, probably. I mean, it's hard to know. Some developers might have got the hookup from Apple, but it's likely that a lot of developers just have been coding blind and hoping that it works. And so if I show you a game like Trouser Heart, which is a sort of button basher thing, you can see, we'll go away, it's got controls, but they don't really work at all. That's not making fun of the guys who made the game. It's just that they haven't been able to have one of these in their office to see what the game would look like with it on, so they've just had to write the code, and with sort of Apple's very vague documentation, and just hope it works, and in this case it hasn't. So I'm basically hoping that the problems I saw in Limbo where the buttons wasn't working, and the problems I had in Dead Trigger where the analog stick was not quite as good as playing it on, say, a Vita or an Xbox, could be fixed in some kind of software update from the game makers themselves. Also looking around here, we've got a pause button that doesn't work there. You've got a lock button, which actually just hits the lock button on your iPhone. You've got this button, which won't work now. No, but basically it's got a huge battery in this thing. It's got like an 1800 megampere something battery. So this thing will last for about 16 hours of you playing with it, which is pretty incredible. And what's going on? It does this sometimes when you multitask back into a game, or maybe it's just because it's dying. Oh dear God. Let's pretend this never happened. Again, you know, one of those things, I don't know if that's the MOGA's controller's fault or if it's a software fault. It's sort of early days for these things. They're still in their infancy. Anyway, so it's got about 16 hours of battery life, but once you've got it fully charged, you can also hit this button and it will actually charge your iPhone or iPod. So that's, and you'll get about an hour's worth of charge out of it. And then when that's dead, your controller will still work for a few hours after that. So that's very cool if you're going out on a sort of, you know, on a road trip or whatever, and you want to conserve some battery on your iPhone. And then sort of the final thing I want to show you is when you take it out, you've got these little bits of plastic in it, which there we go, that are used to raise or lower the bed of this MOGA thing. So at its lowest point here, it's good for the chunky iPhone 5C. Then these little sort of very thin ones are good for the iPhone 5, and then for the very, very thin iPod Touch 5, you want to put in these chunky orange ones. They sort of they snap in, but they do kind of fall out, and you're probably going to lose them. And there we go. Now we've got the iPod Touch in. Let's get some brightness, and there we go. And here's another game that is just quite a little disappointing with it, which is Lego Lord of the Rings from TT, Traveller's Tales, maybe. Come on. Yeah. Basically all I wanted to show you was that this one doesn't work with the analog stick, and you have to use the D-pad, which is not very nice to use for any kind of game, let alone a 3D one, and it's once again more than likely you know, showing that developers just need to release a second update for controller support where it actually works properly. And this one also has kind of unresponsive buttons too. That's the MOGA Ace Power. It's coming out very soon. In my opinion, I'd say to probably hold off for a little bit longer, see how it gets on when developers have actually made their games specifically for this and other controllers. I'm sure Logitech's got one in the works, probably SteelSeries, probably hey, maybe even Apple. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? But until then, this is the MOGA Ace Power, perfectly usable, perfectly playable, but not perfect. So keep an eye out. We'll let you know how we get on after some time. Bye.